Right, and I just hope you enjoy Heaney as much, or Heaney as much as I do. Digging. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Under my window, a clean rasping sound when the spade sinks into gravelly ground. My father, digging. I look down. Till a straining rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through potato drills where he was digging. The coarse boot nestled on the lug, the shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. By God, the old man could handle a spade, just like his old man. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Toner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf, digging. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge through living roots awaken in my head. But I've no spade to follow men like them. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with it. Yeah.
Sounds like work.
Yeah. Well, it is a kind of work, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. 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 I just love that poem, and I love Seamus's way of writing, which is pretty free verse overall, but with occasional rhyme in there, metered rhyme.
And sound ground right in the second stanza. He throws in some rhymes. I was trying to find the rhymes later on, but they're not there.
They're internal rhymes.
They are some internal rhymes.
So anything the natural, and of course the poems have the theme of the father and the son. And because my own father, really fairly recently deceased, just 2 years last July, is such a huge presence in my mind still that I was really taken with this one for a different reason than the first. Follower, Death of a Naturalist. My father worked with a horse plow. His shoulders globed like a full sail strung. Between the shafts and the furrow, the horses strained at his clicking tongue. An expert, he would set the wing and fit the bright pointed sock. The sod rolled over without breaking, at the head rig with a single pluck. Of reins, the sweating team turned round and back into the land. His eye narrowed and angled at the ground, mapping the furrow exactly. I stumbled in his hobnailed wake, fell sometimes on the polished sod. Sometimes he rode me on his back, dipping and rising to his plod. I wanted to grow up and plow, to close one eye, stiffen my arm. All I ever did was follow in his broad shadow around the farm. I was a nuisance, tripping, falling, yapping always. But today it is my father who keeps stumbling behind me and will not go away. I just find that just so incredibly powerful. Yeah.
He certainly watched his father a lot.
Yeah.
All the result of close looking, close watching.
And the last poem was Blackberry Picking. Late August, given heavy rain and sun, for a full week the blackberries would ripen. At first just one, a glossy purple clot, among others red, green, hard as a knot. You ate the first one and its flesh was sweet, like thickened wine, Summer's blood was in it, leaving stains upon the tongue, and lust for picking. Then red ones inked up, and that hunger sent us out with milk cans, pea tins, jam pots, where briars scratched and wet grass bleached our boots, round hay fields, cornfields, and potato drills. We trekked and picked until the cans were full, until the tinkling bottom had been covered with green ones, and on top big dark blobs burned like a plate of eyes. Our hands were peppered with thorn pricks, our palms sticky as bluebeards. We hoarded the fresh berries in the byre, but when the bath was filled, we found a fur, a rat-gray fungus, glutting on our cash. The juice was stinking too. Once off the bush, the fruit fermented, the sweet flesh would turn sour. I always felt like crying. It wasn't fair that all the lovely canfuls smelt of rot. Each year I hoped they'd keep, knew they would not. You know, really, if you wanted to use your relationship with your father as a possible prompt, it is kind of interesting. I do want to show you this poem I did write about my father in trying to follow Seamus Heaney a little, not enough rhyme in it, that's for sure, but if you want to take one and pass that on in this direction.
A poem.
No, well,
Or poet.
try it. You get on this subject and anything can come out of you. It's just amazing. The impatient philosopher. Everyone has it all wrong about death, Dad said. Still able to sit at the table, his old body Auschwitz thin, his hazel eyes big, luminous, his pale Irish skin translucent, barely covering bone, his mind busy, alive, busy. They think when someone dies, it's just about sadness and grief, but it's really just the opposite. It should be a time of joyous celebration, the soul's reuniting with God, that pure white light of unconditional love and complete and total acceptance. The hard part, in truth, is being born, then forgetting that lovely connection. His fist bangs the table. Good God, how long does this have to go on?
Aww.
Really. Totally. So he pretty much willed himself to die at 90, you know. But he lived a good life, and it was a beautiful death, so. That Irish anger kept him alive a long time.
I had the privilege of knowing him the last 2 years of his life.
Yeah. You were a great friend, Milton. He really loved you. Yeah. Yeah.
Liking, licking, liking, another genetic development.
If you stop right there, it's a good poem.
I said it, folks.
Yes, you did. You got it out.
I got it out. The recent announcement of the discovery of Dreadnoughta shranii gave insight into how large creatures can become genetic fooldarad work, you see. I, of course, enjoy the hummingbirds, and here too another recent discovery, the sweet-tooth gene. You and I, rather small humans on a dreadnought scale, have a sweet-tooth gene. If Dreadnoughta shranii shared this gene with us, what was sweet in his jungle of things to nibble? Bugs. Can you imagine 65 tons of beast being satisfied munching on beetles? But the gene for liking licking, the dreadnought had, maybe liking growing on tall trees and rocks, teased their senses and drove them wild with anticipation of licking sprees. Who knows? Licking in Patagonia might to them seem like heaven.
We love it, we love it.
So Sven, sorry for next week, would you hide the science section of the New York Times?
Hey, that last stanza,
What?
the last stanza,
Yeah.
Right.
let's see, in Patagonia, might to them seemed like heaven.
Might to them seem like,
Seem.
yeah, thank you.
Seemed.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah,
Yes,
that was
there.
the deal, yeah.
Yes.
And is it five
Might or what?
in the,
Have.
Seem, to them seems like, seemed like heaven.
It seems
Well, they
like-
are along.
They both work.
and then
Then it
above
seems
that,
like heaven, that's nothing wrong with it.
Haves, I need a verb in there, haves.
Might have seemed.
Might have, yeah.
Might have seemed, yes.
I believe at that time, that's
What, that's all.
sure.
But they only licked it, they didn't eat it?
Hmm?
They only licked, didn't eat it?
You make an ice cream cone.
I am not an authority.
She was there,
Okay.
watching.
and the stanza
Dread
up
goddess.
above,
Watching
the line that starts out bugs. Can you imagine 65, you spoke tons.
It's tons, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I was
just
gonna,
delete
I
the
think
E.
I was halfway between the double N,
Ah.
and what I should have said, so the E comes out.
Yeah,
It's not tunnies.
yeah, or tones.
That's gonna be tongues.
Right.
The shipping weight is, I think, what I had in mind.
I was looking for ice cream all the time, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, I'm proud of myself for being able
Yeah, that's nice.
to
Very good.
speak the words.
Yeah.
Really.
Exactly.
Tongue twister.
Okay, full moon. Full moon, light at night. Did you ever wonder how many moons there are in the Milky Way? Did you ever wonder as a child how something like a moon could hang there in the sky? Cold moonlight hard gleaming on frozen water, hot tropic nights in moonlit jungles, the cirrus bloom only in the full moonlight. Its fragrance fills the desert air, intoxicating any creatures that live there. Extremes, light at night.
Like
Yeah,
that night, that's a
very
great line.
It was definitely.
We had a wonderful moon last night, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get much of it. It was
Yes.
cloudy.
Yeah, I had a few glimmers,
Yeah.
but not much, it wasn't clear.
It was the last of the big moons.
The harvest
Yeah,
moon.
the harvest moon, yeah. That's called On the Beach. From the window of the bleached beach house, I watched my frail father walking near water's edge. Rhythmically, waves lapped at his bony bare feet. He paused for a moment, and with his walking stick, he scratched her name into the warm, wet sand. And then he wept as he watched it wash away.
Oh my God.
Very touching.
Oh my gosh. That's beautiful.
Inspired by you, Ruth, by your Janus, by your shaman. And the other one is a little quirky, but everything I do is a little quirky. So this one is,
One question, are you talking about us?
He's not talking about me.
all right, this one is, why do old men write poetry?
Okay.
When I was a mid-career academic, I knew a retired professor who took to writing poems. Poetry was not his field. He just published dainty little verses with saccharine sentiments. He gave his chapbook to both friend and foe. Oh, it was well crafted and attractive enough, and many of his poems weren't half bad, but a lot of them were 100% bad. How vain, how egotistical, how self-obsessed. I vowed then and there to never ever do that. But now, like him, I too have retired, and yes, now I too am trying to learn to craft poems. Like him, shamelessly I disperse my verse, and about half of my work isn't half bad. Oh my God, I have become just like him. Why do ex-professors often write poetry? At advanced age, it is not for gold or glory. Why do they do it? Few will read our limping lines. Should we not learn to curb our doggerel? I know my answer to this odd conundrum. Poetry is an innately satisfying word game, but its importance to poets goes past this, like carving your name in the bark of a tree or painting wily graffiti in the dark of night. Making poems validates life and fosters joy. Poems assert a poet's humanity. They shout, unique is my fingerprint and my DNA profile. Only I mingled words this way. They are me.
Well said.
Well said is right.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's my...
Very enjoyable.
Yeah. Just out
Excellent.
of curiosity, on the first line of the third stanza.
Yeah.
Third stanza? Sorry,
Yeah.
third line? Okay, but
Yeah.
now like him, I too have retired, and yes.
No, the
How
first
vain,
line.
how.
Oh, how vain, how
Yeah,
egocentric.
Egocentric is what is written here, but you said
Egotistic.
egotistic.
Oh, did I really? It might be better to say it the way it came out naturally. I started to say conceited. I had a bunch of vanity words in there, but yeah, that's interesting. Actually, that's a true story. When I was a young professor, there was a professor named Mino Levenstein. Now, many of you might remember Mino. He was a very brilliant economics professor, well published. Vernon Alden brought him here from OSU. He was considered a great professor. He was captured and brought here. But when he retired, he began to write poems. And he would, every time you saw it, he'd say, have you seen my latest poem? And he would hand you his latest book, his little chapbook, self-published chapbook. And I said, oh my God, I hope I never become just like him. And here I sit before you just like him.
Do we
It
all
happens
become what
before-
we fear the most? Is that
You become what you fear you might become.
Do you remember his poem called Hiss?
Yes? Did
Hiss,
Yes?
you? I didn't.
H-I-S-S.
Oh, I have several books of his poems. Actually, they're not really all that bad, actually.
It was about his ex-wife.
Oh, that's not very nice, is it?
And he and I were on a doctoral committee, and after he had asked his questions, he shoved his poetry over there for me to read. And the first thing I saw was Hiss.
That's, you know.
And I realized that, and the chair of the committee said, Dr. Levenstein, Dr. Ploft, do you have some weighty question? And Mino said, you don't need to be so picky about it.
He reminded me of Ed Wynn. He was a wonderfully colorful character, and he was had a heart of gold. He was, but he was like so many professors, vain and long-winded, and talked too much, and wrote too many poems. Anyway,
Gosh. Well, they were only half bad.
It's just an image that popped into my mind.
Sure.
Of, And I think people do that, and I think it's interesting that people want to shout out to God or to somebody, to some existential shout that says, I am here, I have lived. And whether they do something stupid like carve their name in a tree, or put graffiti on a wall, or they write a poem or a book, or do something, they want to...
Kilroy was here.
Kilroy was here, same thing. And there's something existentially vital about people's capacity to do that. And I think we ought to celebrate it. And people are saying, look at me, I'm alive, I exist, I'm important, if only to me.
World news. I do not want to see the news tonight. I do not want to see the world's misery encapsulated in half an hour. I do care about what is happening to us all. It's just that I feel so small, and I pray someday we'll grow up, one and all.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
There are nights I cannot watch the news. Let's put it that way.
There are nights and dates and everything in between.
And I never watch the news in the morning unless I want to have a bad day.
Just one thing, and it just that I feel so small, it is an apostrophe there.
What?
It is.
It is just, so it's,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is. And,
Wild piano trees, upright and grand, teach us to open to the music all around us.
I really like that. Wild piano trees upright and grand. I really like that.
Yeah.
That's right. That's grand.
Are there trees called piano trees?
No.
No.
Just in the...
That's great, that's even better.
Piano trees.
I see the black and whites flapping off the leaves.
That's nice, Kathy.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about the news.
Yeah.
I'm not able to take it much.
This is just some thoughts, and I turned it into a poem, maybe. I don't know how many I've got here. I've got 10, so. Place. What is place? A position where an object or a body rests or moves on, a destination, somewhere to be. Come over to my place. Let's go to your place, or a space of one's own. Sometimes my place becomes too familiar, and I need a break of place. To see new eyes, gather new thoughts, rest, do, and see in different ways. Sometimes I even wonder what my place is, where I belong, how I fit in, and what I might do to understand this place called life, and the whys and the reasons for changes that come, the ones I did not see headed my way, the ones that shake place to its core. Perhaps place is just now, here in this very second and the next second. My place could be, as Rilke said, live the question. Someday the answer may come.
Wow, that's nice.
Now, did Rilke write, someday the answer may come?
I wrote that.
Okay.
I think he wrote,
So I was
live the
not
question
familiar
and into
with
the distant future you may live into the answer, I think, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so then just live the question.
There's a protocol for a quote, isn't it? You put it in parentheses, in italics?
In italics, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
In poetry, we
Oh,
do,
okay.
instead of putting it in,
Oh.
instead of enclosing it in quotation marks, you italicize it. I just sort of wrote this on my lap from my journal. Model citizen Christopher Quinn had a dark and baleful twin, which he kept hidden deep inside. Read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Volunteer fireman, soccer coach, Christopher was above reproach. On the outside, but within, noxious, odious, dwelt the gin. He fought the craving deep inside. He hoped, he prayed, he'd find it died. All his hopes, alas, went wrong. Christopher's is a tragic song. Husband, father, brother, son. Christopher shone bright as the sun until he saw the devil grin from the bottle and succumbed to gin. Much, much quicker than I can tell, Christopher's life went straight to hell.
Like Minerva-Chivi, he sat thinking. Like Minerva-Chivi, he kept on drinking.
Nice. Do you suppose that the older poems that are in our body of culture or whatever here are a lot better than what is written today? I mean,
I
you
think
can
that they
almost
are.
do without reading what's
Yeah.
written today and enjoy stuff of time gone by, says the old man.
Several years ago, there was a popular song about Richard Cory, and that's taken directly from an Edwin Arlington Robinson
Sure,
poem.
yeah.
Where Richard Cory went home last night and put a bullet in his head, comes directly from the poem.
I remember that one. Yeah.
I mean, we've enjoyed the Vachel Lindsay and Sandburg's, I guess, and so on. Those are kind of entertaining poems.
These.
You've got one on the back too.
Yes, on the.
When
Just
you first
on what?
read, when you first read those poems, you were probably quite eager to read them. We all seemed to set out on this path where we were taking knowledge from poets. And I think people do the same thing now. It's just that they're different. We were a different age. The things we related to were far more exciting and mysterious than life is today, when it's so plain and flashed in the face.
Well, so many of today's poets, however, write to be incomprehensible. And that's the merit, that's what they strive for. However you do that, I don't know. Quite how you
They strive to be incomprehensible, is that what
Yes, yes, absolutely. And you are so, your work is so, what's the word, apparent?
Accessible.
Accessible, your work is so accessible. That's saying it's damn trash. I mean, that's another way of saying.
Condemnation, that's a
Yeah.
perversion, isn't it?
Yeah. But one thought about whether in the past, in general, poetry and writing in general was better, and today it's more tormented or whatever. I think the question would be if what's happened in the past is that there were just as bad writers and bad poems, but with time, an actual selection process takes place where the bad disappears and what we keep is the good.
Sure.
Yeah, certainly.
And if that is the case, I think that a lot of what is being written today will disappear, and hopefully very soon.
Right, but it's hard to find the present day stuff that is valuable, that people in general praise. I mean, what poet, currently writing poet, and what current poem, are we repeating and so on.
And when I was introduced to poetry for the first time in a deep way, it was in junior high by a really fantastic English teacher, and we had to memorize a poem, but we had to pick from, quote unquote, the dead poets. And when I think about were there contemporary poets writing at that time, I wouldn't have had a clue. So we memorized, Invictus and the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere and those kind of
The
things.
Lady in the Lake.
Yeah, so I don't know if that came to my mind about old versus new. And what were you
We don't
introduced
seem
to?
to do that anymore.
I don't know, they
My
don't, do they?
grandkids don't come home with poems the way I did when I was in school. Like you, I believe they just
Yeah.
memorized poems.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
they didn't have to stand up
did a
and
lot of
recite them.
memorization. And of course, my father spouted poetry all the time. And you get these sonorous, my name is
How was he?
Ozymandias, King of Kings, look upon my work, ye mighty, and despair.
Pretty strong stuff. But
I said how lucky you were. You grew up such a privileged child.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think so at the time, but I recognized that I really did have this very strong influence from him. Because he didn't write poetry, but he liked poetry, and he was really very widely read. But that was his education. He was a far better educated man than I because of the way they were educated then. I am a better educated woman than my nieces and nephews. They are better educated than their children because they don't even teach the kids to write. I mean, literally, right, not create poetry, but to sign, I guess they can sign their name.
Well, there are cultures where, I guess, the memorization and the reciting of poetry by almost anybody is typical.
Well,
I know that used to be true in Russia. I don't know if current Russia is
It's-
like that or not.
It's true in modern day Indonesia.
Yeah, in Malaysia as well.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
It's during the Arab
Everybody
world.
has a repertoire of poems that they pull out, pantuks they call it. The way we throw in an old adage, you know, early to bed, early to rise, they'll throw in a pantun that is, has some wisdom in it.
Anne Braxton tells the story of, she used to be the fine arts librarian at Alden, and she had a student intern who came, who was from Africa, and she went through this whole spiel of what he was supposed to do and, you know, all his duties and all that. And then she said, now do you want me to give you a written list of that? And he said, no. What you said was, and he gave back everything she said, because that's his culture, where you just, there wasn't that much writing in his culture. People were taught to listen and to remember what they heard.
Yes.
And she said she was just blown away. Shall we turn the page over?
Yes.
Remind me what you just said.
Words on paper, because I couldn't think of anything else to call it. As I droop over my cup of coffee, the splash and swish of rained-on traffic makes me yearn to return to bed. But obligations, duties, grown-upness forbid such indulgence. So up and at 'em, no languor now. I bustle about just to demonstrate that who is watching, may I ask? Virtue and verve. I might never before have demonstrated verve, and here it is wasted on no more audience than a molting canary and a disinterested parakeet.
Damn.
Life gets tedious.
It is.
So, how do you know that the parakeet is disinterested? Have you asked?
I talked to her, a lot. It's a her.
Oh, it's a her.
Yeah, the canary is the he.
Oh, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair question, Patricia.
Well,
No,
she has never inquired into anything that I'm doing.
Here's the canary.
Well, he molts, but he also sings. The parakeet doesn't sing, but she does make little conversational
Sort of looks out the
sounds.
window while you're bustling around, right? The parakeet just doesn't care about your bustling.
It says something to herself, oh, look at her, there she goes again.
Actually, she looks in a mirror. She doesn't really look out the window very much.
Okay.
She has a mirror in her cage.
There's another poem there.
Interested in
Looking in a
herself.
mirror.
Wow, I wonder if in solitary confinement, what would happen if the walls were mirrors?
That's a thought.
If the what?
If the walls were mirrors,
If the
for
walls
people
were
in
mirrors.
solitary confinement.
Wow,
They wouldn't be solitary anymore, would they?
I just wonder.
You,
Wonder what it would do to the riots in prisons.
They don't want to smash the wall to get the glass to
Yes, that's
Yeah,
probably what
right.
would happen.
Metal
It would have to be
mirrors.
There's one more?
violent.
Yes, I do.
I've got there too.
Oh, you, okay.
Yeah, did you get?
Yeah.
Well, I thought of doing that because it's a male and female, and then they would have babies, and they would either be paranaries or canarakeets. And then I figured that since the canaries sing and parakeets talk, we could teach the babies, the paranaries, to sing happy birthday and things like that, and make a fortune. But I haven't done it yet.
Sounds like a new career.
Yes. I got this all thought out, I just had to act on it. Enough blather.
Okay, so now that you have stopped blathering, I suppose I can blather, right?
Carry on.
But before that, Felix and I had a conversation with a mutual friend a few days ago with Tom Shostak, who would love to join this group and commute from Lancaster, so maybe you can have
What's his
some.
name?
Thomas Shostak. He lives downtown. He's a former dean of the university, lifelong learning, and he and I did a lot of traveling together, especially the Middle East and Asia. And he's been writing poetry for quite a while, and short stories. And he's really interested in joining the group, so if nobody objects,
He might once he gets in here.
that is possible, but let him decide. And I know that he cannot come the next 2 Tuesdays, so he said that he would be able to join us on October the 7th.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. But
Yeah.
Look forward to it.
And you work together at OU?
We worked together a lot and traveled together extensively and continue to do. In fact, right now we are doing a project together in Lebanon.
Oh.
So we do have a lot of, he's a very, very dear friend and a very sensitive man, and I think that he will just fit in perfectly with this group.
I certainly second the motion. He's very interested. You would like
We're
him
an open
especially.
group.
He's got a social conscience. He writes political poems and social justice kinds of things. He's a poet to him. I haven't read him for yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would be a welcome.
You know, Ken Holroyd was at our lunch at Sims Road house when we had our Mary Ann's, was it prize-winning?
Right.
It wasn't lunch, it was
Yeah, yeah.
dinner, yeah. Anyway, Ken was there, and he was interested in the group, and he may join. I've spoken to him a couple of times.
He would be good too.
Yeah.
He has not been well.
Oh, really?
He's got some cognitive impairments
Yeah.
going on, which makes it a little difficult for poetry, but he
But I
may-
think it'd do him good to get out.
Yeah, yeah. Good man too, so, okay, what I wrote today is a theme that you've heard me read about before, going back to roots and where I come from and these kinds of things. So it's variations on a theme. This is, and I don't like the title, so any suggestions will be welcome, but New Dawns. My family lives abroad, dispersed south and east. Shadows of the lies we shared decades ago, glowing light of what we have become, united by genes, kinship, memories, and love. My roots, resettled by exile and emigrations, never lost the vigor of the fertile soil of my birth, and gained strength from the nutrients of new lands that sprung fecund fresh growth from novel ideas, inspiring cultural discoveries, and different ways of thinking that infused a reimagined cosmogony to my universe. I am not who I was, but who I have become, and this is good. Across the northern lands this autumn night, petals are falling and tree leaves are turning brown, but my own cherry tree is blooming, undaunted by the peril of an oncoming winter solstice. I still draw water from the river that flows south and east to keep my roots moist and the sap of my tree vital and fresh. I know not when the wet soil will turn into dry earth, nor do I care. My thoughts are not of decay, but of dawns to come and sustained growth. I know that even old oak trees can scatter seeds that breathe new life and can grow into lush forests. And this gives me hope.
Very nice, very beautiful.
Quite lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It does fit in the body of your work beautifully. That's very optimistic too. We need some optimism in this terrible world of ours.
Well, don't read the news. It's very easy.
I realize that in your first stanza, you set the story which you will tell in the second stanza. But I think the second stanza could very well stand alone. I think it could be something to read independently of the other part.
And thank you for mentioning it. I was aware that in a way it turned like two related but separate poems.
Yeah.
And I think, and maybe that's what you're implying, and if you do, I would agree with you that the second one is better than the first one.
And the second one is much better.
Yeah.
A nice parallel tracks. I mean,
There's a lyricism in it that is very appealing.
Yeah.
It's got a yin-yang quality to it. You know, it's two sides of the same coin.
The two lines, my roots resettled by exile and immigrations, never lost the vigor of the fertile soil of my birth.
I'm just curious, how do you feel about, I mean, what was it that?
I love those lines, but what was it you were feeling when do you have any thoughts on that when you wrote that? Like you've never lost the vigor of the fertile soil of your birth?
Yeah, it's an important thing in my life and an important explanation of who I am and all that.
Yeah.
But
it's beautiful.
Until my family and I had to leave in a hurry and go to exile in Mexico and not able to go back until after Franco died, and I had then to wait for the new government to declare an amnesty because both my father and I had been accused of horrible crimes. So I had to wait for the amnesty. And but before I left, I was deeply involved in the life of my country, my culture. I was involved in some resistance. I was arrested by the Franco regime's police when I was 10 and sent to jail for at least a few hours. My father got me out quickly. So I was very engaged in the struggle for reclaiming our nationhood, our culture, our language, our identity. And being very deeply involved in that life, and then suddenly stops and disappears. But that has always stayed with me. In one of the poems I write about, the history going back centuries, that ended with my father leaving the farm and leaving the winemaking and all that and going into a textile industry. But as I mentioned in one of the poems, in my house I still have a little bit of wine left for some very special occasion. The vines first planted by my great-grandfather in 1825. And I would go with my father at about a month from now and help with the winemaking process, at least symbolically, because I was not really doing any work, but it was just a symbol. And then in winter, the process of mixing old wine with new wine in the oak casks. All of that was very much in my life and in my blood. And when all of that disappears, on the one hand, I had the very strong connection with my culture, with my heritage, and on the other hand, a huge loss.
Well, they're beautiful lines.
Thank you.
Nice explanation. Thank you.
New Dawn's title actually fits well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the title, but why did it displease you? You did-
No, I don't know, it's just the feeling that
Didn't feel
put
right.
together, yeah.
Or change it to a singular, New Hope. New Dawn. I was thinking how you ended it with, and this gives me hope.
Yeah.
I like that.
One extra?
Very much.
Well, that's
That's a good suggestion, New Hope. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's a place in Pennsylvania called New Hope.
Should go there.
Right next to Old Hope.
And in between the two is hope.
Just plain hope. So, after all the sad stuff and whatever we've been reading, I thought I'd do something light today.
Which one are we reading?
What Happened to the Future, also known as the potato poem. There's been so much discussion about potatoes in the email of late.
Yes.
So, what happened to the future? It's gone, taking all my planning with it. And what plans can an Afghan have? Will Syrians and Iraqis behead one another? Do Palestinians simply dig into the rubble and wait for the next bomb's arrival? What's the future of the typewriter and the reporter? Will our automobiles drive us around? Will there be no notes written in cursive? Will all the familiar beaches be underwater? Will airliners soon be packed as slave ships? And will potatoes be planted and harvested, cut, cooked, and packaged by machines and sold in wrap bars to munch mindlessly?
Talk about hope, right?
That's right. Now, I plan to expand this by adding that today's news say 50% of U.S. birds are on the road to extinction, that we are losing valuable trees like the ash and so on to other kinds of things, that we're having great floods and rainstorms and windstorms, that diseases are popping up with greater severity. There's currently a respiratory disease for children which has got people very much disturbed. And our education has been dumbed down so that each generation is less, according to Patricia, less educated than the preceding one. And it's not funded. The researchers are looking around to find funds. And all of that is capped off by, I think we are finding a replacement of government and by armed mobs. Armed mobs are replacing government, and borders and sovereignty don't really matter anymore. Pick your country and you can find examples of that. So all of this hope, says, look out, because you're not going to get, as they say as the car guys, they're not going to send you a postcard. It'll just happen.
Don't worry, Ted Cruz may win the election.
Pardon?
I said, don't worry, Ted Cruz may win the next
election.
election.
Right, yeah.
Don't worry.
Good vision.
We can all move on.
Yeah, right.
Good vision. So anyway, that's it. I feel quite content with the notion that the whole thing is collapsing. That we are a species that is well beyond the carrying capacity of this planet, and we are busily bringing it all to an end. So,
Bring it on.
yeah, I don't know, our grandchildren, I didn't hear that.
I said, bring it on.
Bring it on, right, yeah, right.
And your next poem will be about that.
Yeah, right.
That poem is on a cold slab.
Yeah.
On a cold slab, on the other
Now
side.
you know what I suffer. Poor baby.
On a cold slab. Why do I want to picture myself lying cold, blood-drained on a slab? Or in a pool of blood as Michael Brown in the center of the pavement? Why not? I will get there, and when I do, that will be as real as I am now real, or was then 80-some years ago. That's our flesh, blood, and bones, a biological curiosity. Brown will live on, as does Lincoln and Kennedy and Caesar. Their lives were written out in acts of cognitive rebirth composed in blood. The publishing in blood is at the hand of the assassin, not self-written, as a career of interaction with one's thoughts or in Congress with others would be. How many live on from the Somme or from today's religion's mass slaughter? A gravestone may stand behind a fence, should quiet there persist, but it speaks little and to few. My poems, my books, or newsletters may open my closed eyes for a few, but blood does not flow across the pages. Memories awaken for the moment, but they quake in ambiguity and questions. The flowers in my garden will bloom a few years, reborn not by me.
Wow.
Wow. That's a pretty horrible thought to think of yourself. on
Isn't
the
that neat?
coast.
Like I said, I thought I'd change to something light for a while.
If I would.
But I guess that must be next meeting.
No, I think it's healthy to articulate some of these dark thoughts that occur to all of us. You know, we all have these moments where we imagine apocalyptic visions of terrible endings. It's good to bring them out, put them out on the cold slab for all of us to see.
Well, you talked about the poems and their function and whatever for old persons, and I've gone to poems in place of letters to the editor.
It's very therapeutic.
Useless, but that's what my poems really are, letters to the editor.
Yeah. That's why you'll like Tom Shostak. I have a feeling he was going to write something very similar to that. He support this, he would.
I have a third something, not by me, but this is I picked up off the internet, and it's by an Ohio poet, George Bilger.
Oh, yeah, I like his poetry.
George Bilger. He's on the staff at John Carroll, isn't it? Yeah. And he's won several awards, and including for the Ohio Arts Council. But this is a very nice little, easy to comprehend, accessible.
Cheers.
August is the title. Just when you've begun to feel you could rely on the summer, that each morning would deliver the same morning dove singing from his station on the phone pole, the same smell of bacon frying somewhere in the neighborhood, the same sun burning off the coastal fog by noon, when you could reward yourself for a good morning's work with lunch at the same little seaside cafe with its shaded deck and iced tea, the day's routine finally down like an old song with minor variations. There comes that morning when the light tilts ever so slightly on its track, a cool gust out of nowhere, whirlwinds a litter of dead grass across the sidewalk. The swimsuits are piled on the sale table, and the back of your hand, which you thought you knew, has begun to look like an old leaf for the back of someone else's hand.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah, I like that.
It's nice, isn't it?
Very
Not
nice.
a happy sentiment, but it's nice.
I'd love a copy of that. Thank you.
Steve, can you email that? Is that an emailable poem?
The August? Yeah.
You can probably find it in, on.
Hello.
Sheriff, Dr. Griggs, Honorable.
Was it on Writer's Almanac?
George, B-I-L-G-E-R-E.
Yeah.
B-I-L-G-R-E.
The title is August.
Well, she's on the 4th floor, and, well, I think I gave you her last name as McDonald, and, but she's on the 4th floor, and her first name is Tammy. and I'm away from home, so I don't ever. You shouldn't carry the damn phone with you, because I don't have her room number dug up. So anyhow, 50 what? The speed limit for cars of the 20s, or the price of a neat suit of that day, or the age for looking backward, where most of life's crucial events now lay. Lay is the verb proper to use at this time to denote life events now long past, and words useful for making a rhyme may also be near to our last. 50 is good for looking ahead to events that we hope may occur, for friends living, not dead, and the will to last endure.
Where did you get the idea of 50?
What?
Where did the idea come from for this?
Well, as I reflected on my own life, I thought I have more to reflect on by a hell of a lot than I do looking forward. And then I went back and I thought, for crying out loud, that's been true since I was 50. But I had more important life events and blah blah. And so now you don't look ahead because that's dangerous. But I apologize for not having put more work into the poem, because I did it in a couple days and I still don't feel comfortable with it. But in terms of the Model Ts, the Fords and the old Dodges, maximum speed 45 or 50 in the 20s, and I thought, why would I remember that?
Yeah.
Why would I remember so much of the first 50 years, and I have far less to look forward to, realistically. But
I don't know what is going to be the final outcome of this, but the stock market is not the stock market that all of us think about.
So long as it's going up, I'm not complaining.
All right. Well, 50% of the trading or something is done through these quick.
I hear what you're saying, it's a serious problem, but I mean, the stock market, as you know, is on an all-time
Oh, it's
high.
going crazy, yeah.
But, you know, it's probably going to be a bubble that bursts.
Yeah,
God knows where it will end
It
up.
matches the unemployment scene. The growth in poverty matches the growth in the